teen shot while trying to carjack an off-duty officer at gunpoint. Fox 45 News investigates what's fueling this violent crime trend involving juveniles. 9 Greektown businesses burglarized overnight.
I want them to see what we're going through.
The old days, everything was good. You know, now it's changed everything.
We make residents' frustrations heard. Then a report details decades of sexual abuse in Baltimore's archdiocese. New today, why a judge is now ordering dozens of previously redacted names to be released.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
He went into the yard, came back out with a BB gun as the dude was getting in my car and started my car.
My husband, and he's like, I said, you need to sit down. He's like, he's been shot.
That's when he confronted him, then, I just heard the 4 shots.
A family continues to mourn today after a car theft turned deadly over the weekend in Canton. Tonight, Fox 45 News making the voices of residents heard as families continue to be impacted by this crime trend.
I still can't believe he's gone. I just want him back. I just want to walk down in my basement and see him sitting in his chair and him saying, haha, the joke's on you. I got you, babe. That's just how he was. That's how we were.
So sad. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Fox 45 News is learning a 15-year-old has been shot after police say he tried to carjack an off-duty officer.
And we have team coverage. Let's get to Alexa Ashwell live downtown.
Alexa, you're finding out young people are apparently fueling the carjackings?
Yes, Kai, Mary, auto thefts and carjackings are happening every day across the city of Baltimore. Several cases have been reported in just the past 24 hours, and in some of those cases, the suspect was a juvenile.
In Baltimore,
auto theft for 138 South Curley Street.
A car is stolen every hour, and at least 1 carjacking is committed every day, according to statistics posted by Baltimore police. And many of these crimes are being committed by juveniles. Just yesterday, Baltimore police confirmed an off-duty police officer shot a 15-year-old who was attempting to carjack him at gunpoint in a neighborhood in northeast Baltimore. Investigators say the teen later confessed to the crime and detailed the getaway car he used had also been reported stolen in the city.
The general reason why cars are stolen nowadays or carjacked is to provide a vehicle to commit other crimes. And by and large, those crimes are being committed by juveniles, some as young as 12, 13 years old. They acquire a vehicle, whether it's by force, which is a carjacking, or just they see a car running or they're otherwise able to get a car started. It's not theirs, and then they use it to commit other crimes, including robberies, carjackings, and other thefts.
Former BPD Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson weighing in on the troubling spike in auto thefts, a more than 200% increase compared to this time last year. At least 5,895 auto thefts as of 3 weeks ago. That translates to more than 24 cars stolen in the city each day. And while carjackings have gone down, at least 289 have been reported so far this year. Most recently, police confirm a Jeep was stolen in an armed carjacking on South Luzerne in Canton around 8 this morning.
I think if there were better means of accountability and there were more consistently applied accountability, we would see the numbers go down.
But concern, fear, and frustration only rising. Some of these armed robberies, auto thefts, and carjackings are leading to shootings and even homicides, like the shooting death of Daryl Benner, killed just steps from his home in Canton by suspects who police say were stealing his nephew's car.
He did take his final breath laying in my lap.
This surveillance video capturing that armed robbery that led to the homicide. The suspects still in the loose. Fox 45 News questioning police, asking what is BPD doing to address this alarming number of auto thefts and or carjackings.
My frustration stands really high with Brandon Scott.
So BPD not directly answering that question. A spokesperson did say they're looking into possible connections with this recent violence. But again, no arrests have been made aside from the 15-year-old. Reporting live in Baltimore, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Well, about a year ago, two people attempted to carjack an off-duty officer in South Baltimore. Police later arrested and charged a 16-year-old and a 23-year-old for that incident. City leaders then speaking to how brazen criminals can be.
Yesterday, Fox 45 News questioned Mayor Brandon Scott on crime being fueled by young people. This is what he said when we asked him about whether he'd push for stiffer penalties for young offenders.
As I said, the system needs to be built from its entirety, right? I know that a lot of folks want to pigeonhole this into be about tougher sentences, but it's also about how about we do the basic things right.
And now an update to a story we brought you last night at 10. The teen stabbed in Harford County has died. The 17-year-old was stabbed at the McDonald's along Pulaski Highway in Havre de Grace around 2 in the afternoon. Police have arrested two people. One of them is also a 17-year-old.
In Baltimore, breaking overnight, a rash of burglaries in Baltimore's Greektown neighborhood. Baltimore police say at least 9 businesses were targeted by criminals. Residents we're speaking with are frustrated and in disbelief.
I don't know why they did it.
This place here, I'm sorry to say, but they go to hell.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live at police headquarters downtown. Amy, what are you learning?
Well, Baltimore police say detectives are now looking into whether this rash of burglaries are connected to one another. Here's what we saw when we arrived in the Greektown neighborhood earlier today. We saw a missing window pane, remnants of shattered glass, and a restaurant even with its front door boarded up. Several businesses along this stretch of Eastern Ave here were among the 9 businesses targeted by burglars overnight. Baltimore police say it all happened between 1:30 and 5 a.m. The criminals reportedly stole cash from most of the places that they hit. And today, some in the Greektown community expressed frustration about the city being plagued by crime, and one man fears whoever committed these burglaries might not face consequences.
If they continue to do this, the Greektown is going to be gone. Because even if they caught him, whatever there is, the next day be out.
So, Amy, what are police saying about possible suspects at this time?
So, Kai, the only possible suspect description today shared by Baltimore police were males possibly wearing dark clothes and masks. So far, no arrests. We're live downtown. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Happening tonight, Governor Wes Moore will be sitting down with political commentator Armstrong Williams. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live with what we can expect to hear from the governor tonight. Mackenzie?
Well, Mary, this interview could reveal where the governor wants to go in terms of his crime-fighting strategy, right? The governor was in Brooklyn earlier today touring the Brooklyn Homes community, but the event was closed to the press and he didn't have any opportunity for us to ask any questions. But with the rise of juvenile crime on the minds of so many people, not just in Baltimore, but across the state, we're really taking an interest in hearing what the governor has to say in his terms or in his idea about how to curb this juvenile crime. Does it mean revamping the entire juvenile justice system? Does that start with the Department of Juvenile Services? What would that entail? And what does he want to see lawmakers tackle when they return to the General Assembly session in January? These are all topics that the governor could talk about during this interview and discussion later tonight. In terms of what we could expect to hear from him, however, earlier this summer, he spoke about juvenile crime with our sister station in Washington, D.C. Here's what he said.
We have to make sure that we have laws that are actually consistent with crimes that are taking place. When you have young people who are taking on, in some cases, not just violent crimes, but multiple instances of violent crime, we need to have greater measurements of accountability. And it needs to be very clear that we will not tolerate it.
Now, what that exactly means really remains unclear. The governor has made very similar comments about broad ideas. Hopefully tonight we'll learn some specifics, especially if he wants to see any changes made to the current juvenile justice laws. We know that there has been a lot of scrutiny on those laws, and some people are calling for those changes to be made in Annapolis. We'll have to wait and see if the governor agrees. Mary?
And Mackenzie, in addition to crime, any other topics we expect to hear from the governor about?
Yeah, the possibility of education as well as the economy are also possible tonight. We know that the conversation comes after we heard from the governor speak in Ocean City over the weekend at the MACO conference, talking about the state of the economy. He's warning about the potential for budget shortfalls. So it'll be interesting to hear if he's asked about how the conversation about strengthening the economy fits into the education conversation, especially when it comes to the Kerwin plan. We know that the Kerwin education plan is calling for millions of more dollars to be poured into the education system. A lot of communities, especially here in Baltimore, are warning that they may not be able to pay for that hefty price tag. So we'll have to wait and see if the governor's asked about that, and if he is, what that means for the state and communities moving forward. We'll have more about this conversation, including the highlights on crime, education, and the economy, coming up tonight at 10. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. You can watch Armstrong's full conversation with the governor this Saturday on MyTV Baltimore at 3 and later that day on the CW at 6. Then on Sunday, it'll air right here on Fox 45 at 2.
Looking ahead, state lawmakers will hold a hearing next month to address juvenile crime. It's not a special session and can't be used to enact new laws or change existing ones. Governor Moore told Fox 45 News he won't be calling a special session. That brings us to our question of the day. Is the General Assembly responsible for the spike in juvenile crime? So far, 97% of those who are voting say yes. To make your voice heard, go to foxbaltimore.com.
Well, decades of abuse inside the Archdiocese of Baltimore comes to light. Straight ahead, the new order from a court to reveal the identity of those whose names were blacked out.
New state test scores revealed today. What we're learning about Maryland's school systems from best to worst.
And Maryland records a local infection of malaria, something we haven't seen in 40 years. Straight ahead, what to do to protect yourself.
And after big high heat yesterday, some nice comfortable temperatures this afternoon and into this evening. 70s falling into the 60s, but more 90s are on the way. I'll let you know when they get here and how long they last. That's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Maryland Public School students are showing signs of improvement in both math and English, according to state test scores released today. The 6 school systems in this area saw improvements in 3rd through 8th grade math and English compared to 2022. Carroll and Howard County schools performed the best, while Baltimore City schools ranked at the bottom for grades 3 through 8. Now, 25% of students tested were proficient in English, 9.1% in math. Baltimore City did show bigger gains in English compared to the state. The 2023 MCAP scores were discussed hours ago at the state school board meeting.
Is it working in each individual school? No, that's the challenge at hand, making it true in every single classroom, every teacher who teaches reading and early literacy, no matter what day you walk into and you're seeing a master at his craft. But it is in the aggregate working. The investments that we've made the last 2 years, our systems are working their butts off, and we're seeing gains.
Project Baltimore will have an in-depth look at the MCAP scores tonight at 10 o'clock. That includes grade levels where test scores are raising the biggest concerns.
Well, meantime, the state school board is running out of time to make a decision on whether the current superintendent will get a new contract.
Right now, State Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury earns more than $300,000 a year to oversee the operation of Maryland Public Schools.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, his future as superintendent is in doubt.
200 West Baltimore Street, the Nancy S. Grasmick State Education Building. Once a month, the Maryland State Board of Education meets in this building to make important decisions about the future of public education in our state. This week, the board is set to discuss who will lead the Maryland State Department of Education for the next 4 years. Mohammed Chowdhury has been the state superintendent since 2021. But over the last few months, a series of Project Baltimore investigations have raised serious concerns about his leadership. And as the board prepares to decide his fate, there are still many questions that remain unanswered. Unanswered question 1. Is the superintendent's state-issued cell phone still set to auto-delete text messages after 30 days. On April 10th, Project Baltimore filed a public records request for emails and text messages sent and received by the superintendent from January to March of this year. This was the time period when the state, without alerting the public, changed how it reports test scores at low-performing schools, which made far less information about those schools available to taxpayers and parents. When we filed that public records request, we learned 98 text messages from the time we requested were deleted off Superintendent Chowdhury's state-issued cell phone.
If someone willfully deletes a public record, it's a crime, and they can go to jail for up to 3 years. So it's a very serious violation of the law here in Maryland if that was done.
In a statement, the school board explained that the superintendent's phone was set to automatically delete text messages after just 30 days. But 12 of those text messages were not yet 30 days old when Project Baltimore requested to see them, which leads to unanswered question 2. Why were 12 text messages deleted after our public records request was filed on April 10th?
This needs to be investigated immediately as record concealment or destruction of the public record. So those records belong to the people.
According to state law, when a public records request is filed, the documents requested should be preserved. In this case, they were not.
The superintendent should consider resigning his position.
Chowdhury's contract expires in June of next year. If the school board offers him a new contract, it must be finalized by the end of September. But some have expressed concerns, including Governor Wes Moore, who appointed 5 of the 14 current board members. Project Baltimore sent an email to Governor Moore's office asking if he supports renewing Chowdhury's contract, given the most recent controversies. His office told us they are aware of FOX45's reporting and are monitoring the situation.
I do not believe that this is the person that should be leading our state into the future.
Meanwhile, former employees are coming forward with their own concerns, including this whistleblower, who asked not to be identified for fear of retaliation.
As an MSDE employee, were you made aware that
the superintendent had this second email?
No.
When Fox 45 filed our initial public records request, we learned the superintendent was using a secondary email account to conduct state business. At first, the email was redacted. But when Fox 45 challenged the legality of that redaction, MSDE removed the black. And we saw the superintendent was using a hidden email, Mohammed.Chaudhry725@maryland.gov. Unanswered question 3. Is the state superintendent still using his secondary email account to conduct state business? In a statement, MSDE said Chaudhry used this email as a means of organization because his primary email address receives a myriad of messages from stakeholders every day.
It doesn't make sense. It seems like you're hiding something.
When the board discusses Chaudhry's contract, those discussions will likely take place in closed session, which are not open to the public. But by the end of the board meeting, we should have some idea as to what the board decided. We will keep you updated as we work to get answers. I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
All right, a good-looking Tuesday. My one Townsend bathed in sunshine right now. We are tracking the next weather maker, though. Not here yet. 84 degrees after the 90s yesterday. We got some mostly cloudy skies in, but it's high clouds. Winds out of the north-northeast at 13. That's a cooler and drier, that's the big thing, drier direction. The dew pointer, that measure of moisture in there, it is low, only in the 50s, and that's where it stays for the remainder of today and, in fact, into tomorrow. But notice the humidity trends coming up toward miserable once again, and this is going to come with mid-90s perhaps into Friday with that dew point at 74 degrees, miserable, nasty. And then it does turn better on into the weekend. Now, of course, with moisture also comes a rain chance, and that's when our next weather maker gets here, likely for Thursday on into Friday as well with that shower and storm risk. Nice weather for now. There's a cold front. That's our latest weather maker, came through with very little fanfare, but you feel the big difference today. The humidity's gone. The drier weather is back, but heat and humidity does wait out to the west, ushered in by a few thunderstorms that are off to the north and west of that, and potentially we could get a couple of those as we work again into Thursday and then maybe even into Friday as the heat really builds in for a day at least. Now down into the tropics, we've got a few things that we're watching. Now, nothing that's an immediate issue for the United States, but there's one that's out in the eastern portion of the Atlantic. It's got a 40% chance of development, which has actually been ratcheted down off a high chance of development over the past couple of days. That's out in the open Atlantic over the next several days, has some chance of forming into something. A 30% chance of development, that again is over the central Atlantic and moving northbound away from any land. And then we're going to have to watch around the Dominican Republic, potentially for impacts from a tropical storm over the next couple of days. Tropical storm watches and warnings are out for Hispaniola with what is Franklin. That eventually will probably move out into the open Atlantic as well. Maybe some impacts for Bermuda. There's also Harold, which is now headed into Texas with a lot of rain there. So the future scan overnight tonight into early tomorrow looks nice and dry for tomorrow as well. But we do track the next weather maker. There's that rain chance that arrives later Wednesday night into Thursday morning. There it is after midnight into early Thursday. Notice the showers and maybe even a thunderstorm. So another nice day tomorrow. Scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm, rising humidity Thursday, hot and humid, isolated storm Friday, then a cool down and drier into the weekend.
Jonathan, thank you. President Trump is preparing to surrender to authorities in Georgia. When that could happen, coming up. Investigating bribery, what a new city IG report is revealing. About attempts to bribe city building inspectors. And Maryland records its first case of a local malaria infection. Next, a doctor breaks down what we all need to know. It has been 4 decades since somebody in our region was infected with malaria, and it comes as the U.S. continues to record local infections. Tom Rogers speaks with a doctor on what you need to know.
Maryland is now reporting its first positive case of locally acquired malaria in 40 years. The state typically reporting around 200 travel-related malaria cases annually. The Maryland Department of Health investigates each case for cause and risk, but this one's different. Dr. Miriam Loeffler with the University of Maryland School of Medicine says while this is very rare, we don't want to go backwards after eradicating the infection in the U.S. decades ago.
It's an infection that is spread by the bite of an Anopheles mosquito. We have those mosquitoes here in the United States, so presumably every once in a while a mosquito bites someone who happens to have malaria and is not sick, and then goes on to bite somebody else who then gets the infection from that infected mosquito.
So, I mean, this is, as you said, it's extremely rare for this to happen, but you still have the potential to get malaria. And there's some other mosquito-borne illnesses that are out there, too, but malaria is the one that is the main focus a lot of people are looking at. How do we protect ourselves? I mean, the very first thing you think about is, okay, we need to use DEET.
So, since malaria is spread by the bite of infected mosquitoes, you need to do all the things you need to do to prevent bites of mosquitoes. The mosquitoes that carry malaria tend to bite in the evening, nighttime, and early morning. So staying inside in areas that are either totally closed off or have screens, keeping your body covered with long sleeves and long pants, wearing DEET to prevent mosquito bites are all the things that you can do to protect yourself against malaria biting potentially malaria-infected mosquitoes.
Dr. Loeffler also said the University of Maryland School of Medicine is getting closer to releasing human trial results of vaccines to fight against the malaria infection in the U.S. The vaccines are currently being used in countries with high probability of malaria among children, and they're showing some great results. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
A judge orders names of alleged abusers inside the Baltimore Archdiocese to be released. What we can expect to learn. Beware of contractors showing up at your front door. A warning from Baltimore County Police in a live interview coming up next.
I'm Kayla Gaskins. Coming up, why some residents of Maui are not happy with the federal response to the devastating wildfires.
Developing now, a legal victory tonight for those pushing for transparency after decades of abuse inside the Archdiocese of Baltimore.
Today, a Baltimore judge ordered redactions be lifted in a report of abuse inside the church. Earlier this year, the Maryland Attorney General released a 456-page investigation. It listed 158 clergy, teachers, and deacons who allegedly assaulted more than 600 children. Now, the investigation goes back to the 1940s.
The names of about 40 people were redacted. The court is now ordering those names to come to light, with the exception of 3 names. The judge has set a deadline of September 26th.
New today, the Baltimore City Inspector General is out with a new report on attempts to bribe city building inspectors. A complaint alleges a city inspector received a bribe to approve a permit for a residential building. The IG wasn't able to verify that. During the investigation, however, the IG found cases where contractors tried to give money to the inspectors. The Department of Housing and Community Development has now rolled out guidelines and policies against bribery.
Well, word tonight that the Baltimore City Council will hold a confirmation hearing for Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley next month. It comes as Worley continues a series of community meetings with Baltimore residents. Keith Daniels joins us live with the meeting happening tonight. Keith?
Well, Mara, we're live outside the Shake and Bake Family Fun Center here in West Baltimore. Look over here, you see the orange cone in the street, and that one over there, the mayor, of course, parking in front of the building, and above the door, welcome Mayor Scott. The latest location in a series of community meetings happening with Worley and the mayor. Now, they kicked off the first in-person community meeting in Park Heights a week ago. Mayor Brandon Scott calling the meetings an opportunity to discuss how best to build a safer Baltimore and to hear from residents about what they want to see from the city police commissioner. Now, Worley is Scott's nominee for the job. The city council's confirmation hearings delayed until the end of the community meetings. Now, in Park Heights last Monday, residents stepped to the mic with their concerns ranging from police brutality to residency.
We need more officers to actually live in the city to help pay some of these taxes that is all of us affected by.
How are corrupt, rogue police officers going to be handled?
We are a totally different department. We basically do not want to have any bad cops.
Well, the mayor said top priority for him is building public trust. One of the ways to do that, he says, is going to the communities, hearing from residents. And tonight, they're here at Shake and Bake. That meeting scheduled to start at 6 o'clock. We're live now in West Baltimore. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. City Councilman Eric Costello has introduced a bill that would require BGE to obtain a permit to install gas meters, or those regulators we've reported on private property. Now, the permit would require the utility company to get the homeowner's consent for work. The bill is in response to the ongoing legal battle between BGE and hundreds of city residents over those external gas regulators.
This bill would ban the installation of external gas regulators on any property structure in the city with 5 or less dwelling units, so as to not conflict with the Flower Branch Act passed by the General Assembly in 2021. We have heard the concerns from neighborhoods across our entire city, not just historic neighborhoods, but all neighborhoods. And it has been our position that BGE has not provided appropriate justification as to why external regulators are necessary from a safety perspective.
Well, the councilman promised to introduce this bill early this month after a city council hearing on the external gas regulators. A judge will hear the case next month.
Tonight, Baltimore County Police are warning the community to be on the lookout for solicitors.
The department says it's been receiving a surge of calls from residents about people trying to sell them something, but not all of them are licensed.
We are joined live right now by Detective Trey Corbin with the Baltimore County Police Department. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about the reports you've been receiving about these door-to-door solicitors.
Yes, so the county has received an influx in solicitor complaints, and we want to let the community know that all solicitors are supposed to be licensed in Baltimore County in order to practice.
Detective Corbin, let's talk tips for residents. How can you tell if someone is not a licensed, not a licensed contractor or worker?
So all solicitors are supposed to have a license in Baltimore County, and they're supposed to carry that license with you. If they don't, you can go ahead and give us a call at 410-887-2222, or if it's an emergency and they do not leave your property, which is a crime in itself, you can call 911.
I know in this day and age, I don't think any of us like anyone knocking on the
really
door.
Don't.
It's kind of annoying. So how should residents be navigating these encounters? Can they request the solicitors just to leave and sort of say it through the door? Or do you say they should open the door? What should they do?
Whatever the residents actually feel comfortable with. Again, as you said, no one really likes somebody coming up to their door at random times during the day. If you can just announce it, some people have Ring cameras where they can speak to them, but just politely say, hey, we don't want you on our property. And if they do not leave again, you can go ahead and give us a call.
Yeah, I always say leave literature if you've got it.
Sure.
Good to go.
Right, and that's all you need.
Exactly.
Absolutely, Mary. All right, Detective Trey Corbin with the Baltimore County Police Department, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Well, for the first time this election season, Republican presidential hopefuls will be squaring off on the national stage. You are looking live at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the debate is going to happen tomorrow night. 8 candidates will be on that stage. They include Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, and former Vice President Mike Pence. Notably missing from the list is the candidate who is leading in the polls by a solid margin, former President Donald Trump. He says he is not going to do debates because the public already knows who he is. Instead, Trump has reportedly pre-taped an interview with the former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. It's set to go online at the same time as the debate. And right now, former President Trump is facing a Friday deadline to turn himself into authorities in Georgia. We learned last night he may do so on Thursday.
Now, this comes after election interference charges were leveled against him and 18 of his allies. Trump is expected to be fingerprinted and pose for a mugshot. It's all part of the normal process for defendants, although this case is not normal. Some are already criticizing the spectacle.
Is notorious, it's unsafe. No person under Secret Service protection should be anywhere near that facility, but instead they're going to put people at risk, in my view, by making them go through this perp walk.
At least one co-defendant has already turned himself in at the Fulton County Jail. Scott Hall was booked on alleged voting machine tampering charges.
Taking a look now at the Fox 45 quad box, UPS workers are voting on a tentative labor deal. If workers vote no, it could end up being one of the largest strikes against an individual employer in U.S. history. The Teamsters are fighting for more pay and enhanced working conditions.
Republicans are ramping up pressure in their probes of Hunter Biden. The House Ways and Means Committee has subpoenaed a number of IRS officials and FBI agents. It comes just a week after the Justice Department appointed a special counsel to handle the investigation into Hunter Biden's business dealings.
A federal judge is weighing whether Texas can keep a floating barrier of buoys on the southern border. The buoys are being used to deter migrants from illegal border crossings. Detractors say the buoys can pose humanitarian risks.
Updated COVID vaccines could be available in late September. Boosters are now on an annual fall schedule, coinciding with the flu shot. COVID cases and hospitalizations have gone up in recent weeks.
Well, President Biden and the First Lady getting a first-hand look at the devastation in Maui. The president is vowing that the nation's support for the island is what's now the deadliest wildfire in recent history. And as the extent of the damage comes into focus, survivors are growing critical of the government's response.
National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has the story of how the president's visit was received.
It wasn't exactly a warm welcome when President Biden touched down in Maui Monday. Some frustrated it took him weeks to visit the devastated island after he repeatedly declined to comment on the disaster for 5 days last week.
Wow, he's finally here. Yeah, thanks for nothing.
In a missed attempt to connect with survivors, Biden comparing his own small kitchen fire to what is now the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century.
We have a little sense, Jill and I, what it's like to lose a home. Lightning struck at home. I almost lost my wife, my 67 Corvette, and my cat.
Biden not the first president to come under fire for a slow response to a natural disaster. George W. Bush faced similar scrutiny following Hurricane Katrina, and Biden himself highly criticized for not visiting East Palestine, Ohio, following a train derailment earlier this year. The White House defending the federal response.
This is something that the president clearly is deeply concerned about. We're going to continue to do a whole of government response in Hawaii and Maui specifically to make sure that they have everything that they need.
Locals, however, growing increasingly frustrated with the resources and approach.
We feel that the government is steamrolling this process without consulting from the leaders of our community.
Some estimates say recovery efforts in Maui will top $1 billion as FEMA warns they'll be out of funds by mid-September if spending levels continue at this pace. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins.
The historic preseason winning streak at the Baltimore Ravens has come to an end. Morgan Adsit has more on how the Commanders shut out Baltimore.
Could you fall victim to an AI scam? I'm Atrell Nashar with warnings from experts about how this technology can access your private data.
And here at Fox 45, we are your back-to-school headquarters. Some spots, 6 days till school starts, like Baltimore City, 14 days in others. But summertime weather is not done yet. I'll let you know when temperatures could be in the mid-90s and when we could have a round of showers and storms rolling through again. It's in my Weather Authority forecast.
Far too often, people unfortunately fall for scams, often through email, texts, even phone calls. Now the FBI has issued warnings about an emerging threat of artificial intelligence. National correspondent Atrell Nashar reports.
Earlier this year, people across the country were shocked by what happened to Jennifer DiStefano on the afternoon of January 20th.
At about 4:53 p.m., I received a call from an unknown number.
She picked up. It sounded like her daughter, Bree, on the other end.
Mom, these bad men have me. Help me, help me, help me.
Fortunately, Bree was actually home, safe. Authorities told DiStefano they had seen this before, an extortion scam that used AI to replicate her daughter's voice. Patrick Hall, an assistant professor at George Washington University who's worked with AI companies on risk, says many of them are taking steps to address the potential for scams, but there's a fundamental predicament.
These technologies are two sides of the same coin. They make convincing content, which can be used for, good and helpful purposes or for malicious purposes.
Researchers in the UK recently studied how one method of AI called deep learning can be used to gather a user's private information, like passwords, by listening to how they use a keyboard. They found when the AI processed acoustics of keystrokes recorded on a nearby phone, it had 95% accuracy of what was being typed. The researchers point out people will regularly hide their screen, but will do little to obfuscate their keyboard sound. Hall says he'd take this with a grain of salt.
I'd like to see sort of independent replication before I really get panicked about it.
The FBI recommends doing frequent online searches of yourself so you know how much of your personal information is out there. As for the companies behind this technology, an idea that's getting a lot of political support here on Capitol Hill is mandatory watermarks on video, audio, text, so users know when something is generated by AI and not a real person. On Capitol Hill, I'm Atra El-Nashar.
Well, our area is getting ready to mark another Defenders Day. Now, it commemorates the successful defense of the city from British attack in September 1814. Fox 45 News is at Fort Howard Park in Baltimore County this morning, where folks will be marking the events this Saturday. Visitors will be able to witness a reenactment of the Battle of North Point, where the British forces landed before the bombardment of Fort McHenry happened.
We're going to reenact the Battle of North Point. We're going to have British on one side, we're going to have the American forces on another side, and we're going to reenact basically what happened at this battle. So wow. we'll see some musket fire, some rifle fire, some cannon fire, and really just show what the experience was like to everyone that comes.
Yeah, but no one dies in this battle, thank goodness. The celebration is happening from 10 to 5 p.m. Saturday at Fort Howard Park. Admission is free, and there will be music as well, walking tours, and also food trucks for those who get hungry. This year's event will also feature the role of African Americans in the defense of Baltimore. Well, check this out. A zoo in Tennessee has welcomed the world's rarest giraffe. The animal was born last month and is completely spotless. The zoo in Limestone says the baby giraffe is 6 feet tall already. They're seeking the public's help to choose a name for this cute little giraffe.
Very, very cute. All right, I'd like my house to be spotless as well. That'd be nice. All right, so currently 84 degrees, mostly cloudy skies, winds out of the northeast. I'll get that out at 13 miles an hour. Humidity nice and low at 33%. Dew point, that's our measure of moisture in the air, is at 52 degrees. That is low. That's why it feels so comfortable today. And we have those beautiful blue skies on the Toyota Eastern Harbor Skycam. Stays for tomorrow, but look, that moisture content, it rises as we head into Thursday, along with the chance of showers and storms, which we'll track on the future scan. That's going to be our next weather maker. And it's just downright hot and humid. 101, the real feel on Friday before things get better on into the weekend. So HG radar showing our next weather maker, at least the beginnings of it, moving through Canada. We're going to get a piece of some of that rain likely as we head into potentially, I think, Thursday, maybe even lasting into Friday as some heat builds. For now, it's nice behind our latest weather maker. Cold front swinging through, and that takes all the heat and humidity from yesterday. It's out of here, but I think it will return by the end of the week once again. Notice down south, yes, the tropics still cooking. South of Houston, down toward South Padre Island, there's Harold. That is gradually weakening and moving inland. Lots of rain over South Texas. And there's several things that we're watching over the tropics. Nothing that's immediately going to have any impacts on Maryland or the Mid-Atlantic, but there's this 40% chance, moderate, medium chance of development. It's actually dropped off of a high chance of development, so that's good, but it still looks like it could be in some position in the central Atlantic to become maybe something, and something we'll have to watch. There's a low chance of development that looks like it's just going to affect the fish that's heading into the central Atlantic and moving north. And then there's also Franklin, which is a tropical storm now south of Hispaniola, eventually moves across the Dominican Republic and Haiti, could produce a lot of rain and then maybe become a hurricane well off the East Coast and out toward Bermuda. It looks like all computer models generally take it away from the U.S. So the future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning, nice and dry, temperature settling to near 60 or so. I think for tomorrow, some high clouds around, but overall a dry day. Looks like the humidity also stays fairly low. But tomorrow night into Thursday, things could get a little more active with some more scattered showers, maybe even a rumble of thunder through Thursday morning. It looks like that could last through the day on Thursday as humidity comes back, mid-80s there after the nice day tomorrow. There's your heat and humidity at least one day. We're getting toward fall now, so we're kind of cutting down the breadth of the heat and humidity in the forecast. Just one day in the 90s and then back down into the 80s and drier for the weekend.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, a national bus driver shortage puts parents in a tough spot. The struggles some families are facing as they're getting ready to send kids back to school. First, the Washington Commanders put an end to the Ravens' impressive 24-game preseason winning streak. Morgan Adsit has some takeaways from last night's game. It will be a big Sunday here in Baltimore as our very own meteorologist Justin Chambers throws out the first pitch at the O's game. And what better way to get ready than with some special Orioles pancakes, right? On our morning show, we got some help from Miss Shirley's.
We're talking about the push for the playoffs, pancakes. Zuri, good morning. Yes. We love all of your food. Everybody does Miss Shirley's, but talk about your special Orioles pancake.
Yeah, super excited. We have some Oreos pancakes.
It's hard to say with an orange dollop.
To push for the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we have orange whipped cream here. We just did some Oreo cookie crumbles inside the pancakes and on top. And then we got some customized candies here that say Orioles, and they have the Orioles bird on them, and they're orange, black, and white.
So would this be a good like pre-pitch meal for Justin on Sunday morning? Come in.
Maybe, yes.
Get this from Miss Shirley's.
No,
yes.
That's a good idea.
It's either you're going to eat it or I'm going to put that dollop right in your face. Like it just seems like the perfect thing.
Well, Sunday's game against Colorado Rockies is set for 1:30. Get your pancakes.
The streak has ended. The Ravens' record-setting preseason winning streak that started taking place 8 years ago by the hands of the Commanders on Monday night. Washington took down the Ravens 29-28 thanks to a fourth-quarter comeback that needed 2 scores, including a 49-yard field goal with seconds left. So the NFL record will stand with the Ravens at 24 straight preseason wins. It's been labeled meaningless because the wins and losses in preseason don't matter. The Commanders called the record stupid. John Harbaugh doesn't play starters. They don't scheme up a game plan for opponents. Really, these games are just about building the roster. Snaps matter. Players win and lose jobs in the preseason, missing out on thousands, if not millions of dollars and the dream. The players that set this record, most are out of the league, and that happened for a lot of them in the preseason. 24 straight, the record that belongs to the Ravens, is unique for sure.
One of these things you look at and you go, wow, how did that happen? You know, how did something like that take place? It's pretty remarkable. It's, you know, what are the odds? You know, and to say there's no one reason it happens, but it says a lot about a lot of people, a lot of people's effort, a lot of good practice, a lot of good meeting time, a lot of young players working hard to be as good as they can be, a lot of coaches developing those players, scouts finding those players, all those things.
A new streak can get started soon, but what really matters, roster battles get another chance. With the Ravens' final preseason game this Saturday at Tampa Bay, roster cuts down to 53 are next Tuesday, and then the 16-player practice squad will be finalized the following day.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, at least 9 businesses broken into in one night. The calls from Greektown residents who say they're not sure if they're safe. And is there a possible alternative to Donald Trump? We look ahead to the candidates getting ready to take the primary stage for former president, as one former president sits out. A plea from a community facing a destructive series of robberies, what Greektown residents say needs to change in Baltimore.
A teen is shot while trying to carjack an off-duty officer. What can be done to slow down a wave of carjackings and auto theft, some say, has gotten out of hand?
And will the governor support changes to the state's juvenile justice laws? A look at one of the top issues facing his administration ahead of a one-on-one conversation.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
I want them to see what we're going through. Pay attention to the Greek town, because the Greek town is going to be gone.
A message for city leaders as some of East Baltimore is picking up and making repairs after a rash of burglaries. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Baltimore police say at least 9 businesses were targeted by criminals overnight. We have team coverage tonight in a city in crisis, looking into the robberies, youth crime concerns, and more. Let's start with Amy Simpson, who joins us live from police headquarters with the very latest. Amy?
Yes, Baltimore police say detectives are now looking into whether these burglaries might be connected. And this comes as some in the Greektown community are expressing frustration about a city plagued by crime. In East Baltimore today, disbelief.
I don't know why they're there.
And frustration.
This place here, I'm sorry to say, but they go to hell.
Several businesses in this block of Eastern Ave.
This is a Greek town.
Among at least 9 businesses burglarized overnight. Today, a missing window pane, remnants of shattered glass, another restaurant boarded up. Baltimore police said the crimes were reported between 1:30 and 5 a.m. The criminals reportedly stealing cash from most of the places they hit.
The mess. That's what I see. I don't see nothing else. And the owners, they're looking. Who did it? How are you going to find 3 o'clock in the morning? 3 o'clock in the morning, everybody's sleeping. Look what's happened. They broke his door.
These men both live just across the city-county line, but say they've been coming here to Greektown for years. For a social club to play cards or watch sports.
We drink Greek coffee, we talk about the Greeks here.
And while they're not currently city voters,
when the election coming, they know the Greeks.
This man feels like the politicians only come around so often, making campaign promises.
We're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. After that, nothing.
Now pointing to a city he's watched change over the years.
Every day you hear him, if you open the TV to listen to the news, you hear him 3 or 4 people dead. Every teenager now they have gun in his hand.
Worried about what it could mean for a neighborhood he loves.
If they continue to do this, the Greek town is gonna be gone.
Fearing whoever committed these crimes might not face consequences.
Because even if they caught him, wherever there is, the next day be out.
Police say there were no injuries and so far no arrests. Meantime, the only possible suspect description available today were males wearing dark clothing and masks. We're live at police headquarters. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, thank you. A second victim in a deadly Mount Vernon shooting this weekend has died. Police say early Sunday morning, 26-year-old Kashay Davis and 25-year-old Navante Whitner were hit. Investigators say more than 20 shots were fired and witnesses reported hearing automatic gunfire. Anyone with information about this shooting should contact city police.
Well, according to Baltimore police, 178 people have been killed in the city this year. 430 have been shot and survived. And while those numbers are down from last year, there's been a concerning spike in youth crime and auto theft. And Baltimore police confirm an off-duty officer shot a teen who was attempting to carjack him at gunpoint in northeast Baltimore. The case adds to the alarming number of auto thefts and carjackings happening across the city, many of them committed by juveniles. Alexa Ashwell questioning police on what's being done to address this issue. She joins us live now with more. Alexa.
Yes, Mary, auto thefts and carjackings are happening every day across the city of Baltimore. 2 cars were targeted, one stolen from right here on South Washington Street in Fells Point. just last night. No arrests have been made in this case. Another case you just mentioned, police confirming an off-duty police officer shot a 15-year-old who was attempting to carjack him at gunpoint in a neighborhood in northeast Baltimore. Investigators say the teen later confessed to the crime and detailed the getaway car he used had also been reported stolen in the city prior. Experts say many of these types of crimes are being committed by juveniles.
The general reason why cars are stolen nowadays or carjacked is to provide a vehicle to commit other crimes. And by and large, those crimes are being committed by juveniles, some as young as 12, 13 years old. And they acquire a vehicle, whether it's by force, which is a carjacking, or just they see a car running or they're otherwise able to get a car started that's not theirs, and then they use it to commit other crimes, including robberies, carjackings, and other thefts. I think if there were better means of accountability and there were more consistently applied accountability, we would see the numbers go down.
And according to police, the 15-year-old was arrested and transported to juvenile booking, which, Kai Mary, we've long heard that concern voiced by lawmakers, city leaders, even acting BPD Commissioner Rich Worley, that often these juveniles will be arrested and charged, but then be right back out on the street and continue to commit other crime. As for this latest crime committed here in Fells Point, no arrests have been made. Reporting live in Fells Point, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Alexa, thank you. Yesterday, Fox 45 News questioned Mayor Brandon Scott on crime being fueled by young people. This is what he said when we asked him about whether he pushed for stiffer penalties for young offenders.
As I said, the system needs to be built from its entirety, right? I know that a lot of folks want to pigeonhole this into be about tougher sentences, but it's also about how about we do the basic things right.
These issues with the juvenile justice system are raising questions about what will happen to teens who could end up there, like 16-year-old squeegee kid Tavon Scott. Scott was convicted of manslaughter in the shooting death of Timothy Reynolds. His defense attorneys want the case moved to juvenile court for sentencing. If the case does go that route, court records will no longer be available, meaning the public will not know what happens with that sentencing. Concerns within the Department of Juvenile Services have been well documented. The 2022 annual report detailed chronic boredom among kids in those facilities, limited access to books, and few programs available. In May, Secretary Vincent Schiraldi told Fox 45 News some changes were being made, but he recognized cracks in the system. State Delegate Luke Clippinger sent a letter to his fellow lawmakers in Annapolis last month saying the current juvenile justice system isn't cutting it.
What's becoming clear is that the Department of Juvenile Services doesn't have the services and doesn't have a plan to deal with kids who are in possession of guns. When that happens, that should be a world-stopping occasion.
A House hearing on the Department of Juvenile Services is scheduled for September 13th. Governor Moore ordered a review of DJS earlier this spring. It's unclear when that will be complete.
And that brings us to our question of the day. Is the General Assembly responsible for the spike in juvenile crime? So far, 97% of those who voted say yes. Make your voice heard by going to foxbaltimore.com. Happening tonight, Governor Wes Moore will be sitting down with political commentator Armstrong Williams. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live with what people can expect the governor to talk about. Mackenzie?
Kyle, we can expect to hear a lot of different topics, but really the biggest one many people across the state are talking about is this rise in juvenile crime. We just heard so many stories talking about it, and tonight we could get some insight into what Governor Wes Moore wants to do in terms of his strategy to curb this problem. We've heard him briefly talk about it before, but really we're trying to get some insight into what he wants to see happen with the Department of Juvenile Services. Does he want to see the entire department rebuilt? If so, what does that look like? And then also, what does he want to see from lawmakers when they return for the General Assembly session in January? These are questions that we have routinely asked the governor. We know that he was in Baltimore earlier this morning touring around the Brooklyn community, but it was a closed press event, so we didn't have an opportunity to ask him any questions. However, he did sit down with our sister station earlier this summer talking about juvenile crime. Here's what he had to say.
We have to make sure that we have laws that are actually consistent with crimes that are taking place. When you have young people who are taking on, in some cases, not just violent crimes, but multiple instances of violent crime, we need to have greater measurements of accountability. And it needs to be very clear that we will not tolerate it.
What exactly that means is really something that we're hoping to get more specifics on tonight. We've heard the governor make these broad comments about holding young kids accountable. Perhaps we'll hear him talk about what changes he wants to see in the law, if any, when this interview takes place later tonight. Mary?
And Mackenzie, what else is the governor expected to talk about in this interview?
Crime, obviously the biggest topic for many people, but we're also expecting to hear from him on the issue of the economy as well as education. This conversation tonight comes after the governor was in Ocean City over the weekend, where he really raised the warning signs about the state of the economy, perhaps signaling that we could see some cuts moving forward into next budget season. And really we'll be watching to see where the intersection happens with the economy and education, especially when we know the Kerwin plan will be implemented. And we've heard from Baltimore and other communities saying that the price tag of that education spending plan is higher than what these communities had been preparing for. So we'll hopefully get some more insight into that. It takes place in just a little bit, and we'll have a full recap for you at 10. We're live in the newsroom. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. You can watch Armstrong's full conversation with the governor this Saturday on MyTV Baltimore at 3, and later that day on the CW at 6. And then on Sunday, it'll air right here on Fox 45 at 2. Well, developing now a legal victory tonight for those pushing for transparency after decades of abuse inside the Archdiocese of Baltimore.
A Baltimore judge today ordered redactions be lifted in a report of abuse inside the church. Now, earlier this year, the Maryland Attorney General released a 456-page investigation. It listed 158 clergy, teachers, and deacons who allegedly assaulted more than 600 children, an investigation that goes back to the 1940s.
The names of about 40 people were redacted. Now that court is ordering those names to come to light, with the exception of 3 people. The judge has set a deadline of September 26th.
In response to the decision, the survivor group SNAP issued a statement saying while they're happy more names will be released, they're disappointed with comments made by the judge. One of the survivors, David Lorenz, says that he is appalled by the judge's statement that the names are being released to show the abuse was not the result of anything the Archdiocese did or did not do, but rather a result of individuals' actions. Lorenz says the AG's report clearly showed the abuse was a result of systematic failures from the Archdiocese and is calling for all of the names to be released. Well, facing the public ahead of his confirmation hearing, the latest is Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley prepares for another city safety meeting tonight.
The Brooklyn Day shooting suspect was wearing an ankle monitor when he allegedly opened fire, taking a look at how the state's juvenile monitoring system works and what needs to change to keep the public safe.
I'm Scott Thuman at the site of the first presidential debate of 2024. Who made the stage and who's intentionally skipping the event to try and upstage the rest of the field? We'll have complete debate coverage coming up.
And the next weather maker's on the way with some heat and humidity ahead of it, showers and storms with it, and more comfortable weather behind it. But in the meantime, Fox 45 is your back-to-school headquarters. 6 days until Baltimore City, Baltimore County goes back to school Monday, actually. Carroll County is going to be 14 days. A few more jurisdictions here, 6 and 14 days until they get back into school. I'm going to let you know when we get back into the heat. It's my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
We now know the 8 Republican presidential candidates who will participate in tomorrow's primary debate. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, South Carolina Senator Tim Scott, and former Vice President Mike Pence, and former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson and North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. However, the focus could very much be on the candidate who's not attending. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin to explain.
Well, the biggest headline may not be who's here, but rather who is not here. The frontrunner, Donald Trump, choosing not to attend and instead try to draw focus away from the debate and to a pre-recorded interview he's doing with former Fox host Tucker Carlson. Either way, it will have a significant impact on what happens here in Milwaukee. Call it round one in what's likely to be a long political slugfest, the first GOP debate. But it'll be missing the party's most prominent presidential contender.
Everyone can see the stunning contrast between our incredible success and Joe Biden's horrendous failures, and that's one reason why we're leading so big in the polls.
Most Republicans, 74%, do say they would support Trump in a general election. But the stage will be filled with those trying to change that and maybe shift some of the focus.
We'll be ready. I mean, I think that with Donald Trump not being there, I don't think it's any secret that I'm going to be probably the guy that people are going to come after, whether it's the Biden-Harris administration, the liberal media, and then a lot of these other candidates.
With Trump's currently massive lead, is the debate shaping up to be a race to be number 2? Either way, 2 very different strategies are already playing out. Attack Trump.
The front runner for our party's nomination is going to be out on bail in 4 different jurisdictions.
Or cozy up to the current leader.
The reason I don't want to criticize Trump is because everybody else are doing plenty good job of making up attacks that shouldn't even exist. Prosecutors across this country charging cases that should have never been brought. So I don't care to pile on with those criticisms.
Speaking of those charges, Trump now says he'll turn himself into authorities for his arrest in Atlanta on Thursday, which means it'll probably take away from a lot of that traditional post-debate coverage we're so used to seeing. In Milwaukee, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, Tropical Storm Harold is moving over South Texas. This is a live look at conditions near Corpus Christi. The storm is bringing wind gusts of up to 65 miles an hour with heavy rain. More than 39,000 customers are now without power in that region. There's also a flash flood risk. The storm could drop up to 6 inches of rain in some areas, and that looks like rough surf.
Yeah, it does.
And dark skies. All right, Jonathan is here as we talk about weather, which is absolutely spectacular in our area. I mean, you can't get a better summer day. It doesn't feel like the heat waves of August.
Yeah, we had the heat yesterday, and of course the tropics extremely active. We had Hillary that came into the LA area, and then Harold that's in the Gulf of Mexico moving into southern Texas with lots of rain, and more in the Atlantic, which we're going to talk about. But we are sitting pretty, and it looks like the headlines say yes. A pleasant overnight is on the way. Some more nice weather on the way for tomorrow, just like today. Mixed clouds and sun and some low humidity, but hotter and more humid weather does come for the end of the week. And as we work through Thursday, maybe even Friday, the next weather maker could bring a risk of some showers and storms. So the Toyota East Inner Harbor Skycam says you're not going to need an umbrella this afternoon, this evening. Great time for maybe hitting the dragon boats if those are open. 83 degrees right now with sunshine, winds out of the north-northeast. That's a cool and dry direction for us at about 11 miles an hour. Humidity now 33% in that dew point. That is the key number today. That's our measure of moisture in the air. Super low. When those dew points are in the 50s, yes, it feels comfortable. That's going to stay for tomorrow as well. But notice what happens by Thursday. Yes, starts to come up. The heat's not here yet. That's going to be a torrid day. 74 the dew point. That is miserable. And temperatures in the mid-90s going to feel more like 100. improvements, though, heading on into the weekend. HD radar, there are some showers and thunderstorms that lead in some of that big heat. That's way up there toward Marquette, Michigan, into southern and central Canada. That's going to move at us likely for tomorrow night into Thursday. For now, though, fair weather high pressure out of Canada giving us some unseasonably nice weather, almost a little touch of fall. Heat and humidity builds in for, well, maybe not tomorrow, but I think, again, Thursday, Friday timeframe, humidity first and then the heat. Down south and west of that, there are the tropics, but those are getting kept away. That's Harold, south and west of Houston. Then there's also 40% chance of tropical development now. That's over the central Atlantic. That was a higher chance. It was a high chance of development in the past 24 hours. So things are actually improving in terms of development chances there, but a little precarious location here over the central Atlantic in several days. So it's something to watch. Then there's something that's going to probably be off towards the fish. It has a very low chance of development over the central northern Atlantic. And then there's Franklin that looks like it could impact Hispaniola as a tropical storm before it eventually makes the move off into the open Atlantic, maybe potentially scraping by Bermuda over the next several days. But nothing here. So the future scan overnight into early tomorrow morning, nice and dry, low humidity, temperature settled to near 60 for tomorrow. Some extra clouds, I'm thinking now, but I don't think any rain. High temperature is going to be in the low to mid 80s and still low humidity. Won't be quite as pretty as today. There's your showers that roll on in by early Thursday morning. I think some on and off showers and maybe a thunderstorm here on Thursday. Humidity comes up, 85. Hot day on Friday. Only a slim chance of a shower or storm to cool you down, 95. But that's a quick visit from the heat. As Saturday, Sunday, we're back down into the low to mid 80s. Stays there into early next week.
Jonathan, thank you. When will the city move to officially confirm its new police commissioner? What we're learning as Richard Worley prepares to face questions from the public on city safety tonight. One of the most unique records in NFL history has come to an end. Look at the Ravens' preseason matchup with the Commanders last night.
One of the most unique records in the National Football League has come to an end. The Ravens' record-setting preseason winning streak that started back in 2015 ends at 24 straight wins after the Washington Commanders denied the Ravens another preseason W last night, 29-28. It's been called meaningless because these games don't matter, and John Harbaugh doesn't place a lot of value on them as far as playing starters or game preps for opponents. He's even said preseason games don't have a lot of meaning before. If you ask the Commanders about the streak, they called it stupid. Some heated joint camp practices probably playing into that comment. The Commanders played a lot of starters for a half, and they were going for the win. The Ravens had a fourth quarter 8-point lead, but Washington came back and kicked the game-winning 49-yard field goal with 9 seconds left, officially ending this unique record at 24 straight.
You know, shout out to them. They played a great game. I think we went out there, we fought, but you know, it was gonna happen for sure.
You know, it sucks that it ended, but you know, it's an opportunity to grow and learn from our mistakes on film and just keep getting better every day.
Wins and losses don't matter in the preseason for teams, but for individuals, winning and losing performances sure do. Roster battles get another chance with the Ravens' final preseason game this Saturday at Tampa Bay.
Well, calls are growing for the state superintendent to resign. The concerns over a string of deleted text messages that some say look like a cover-up. Baltimore ranks dead last out of 300 cities the impact an economist says a weak real estate market could have locally. And the city ramping up to confirm a new police commissioner. The new information we're learning tonight ahead of a public meeting on city safety.
New information tonight on when city leaders will hold a confirmation hearing for Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley. Worley took over the department after the sudden departure of former Commissioner Michael Harrison. Mayor Brandon Scott says Worley is his pick to take on that position permanently before going through a hearing The mayor and commissioner have been holding a series of town halls across the city, giving the public a chance to voice their concerns. Now, one of those meetings is set to kick off in just a matter of hours. Fox 45's Keith Daniels joins us live right now with the latest on what we're learning. Keith?
Well, Kyle, we're live outside the Shake and Bake Family Fun Center here in West Baltimore. An ambulance passing by here, but right over here you see the orange cone in the street and the orange cone there. The mayor, of course, parking in front of this building, and just above the front door, welcome Mayor Scott. The latest location here in a series of community meetings happening with Worley and the mayor. Now, they kicked off the first in-person community meeting in Park Heights a week ago. Mayor Brandon Scott calling the meetings an opportunity. Where do you want me, right here? For Baltimore, and to hear from residents about what they want to see from the city's police commissioner. Now, Worley is Scott's nominee for the job. The city council's confirmation hearings delayed until the end of the community meetings. In Park Heights last Monday, residents stepped to the mic with their concerns ranging from police brutality to residency.
We need more officers to actually live in the city to help pay some of these taxes that is all of us affected by.
How are corrupt, rogue police officers going to be handled?
We are a totally different department. We basically do not want to have any bad cops.
Well, the mayor has said top priority for him is building public trust. One of the ways to do that, he says, is going to the communities, hearing from residents. And tonight, again, they're here at Shake and Bake, the event scheduled to kick off in about 30 minutes. We're live now in West Baltimore. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. If you'd like to make your voice heard as well, but can't make the meeting, you still have multiple chances to do that. There will be 2 more community meetings before Worley's confirmation. For details on the time, location, and how to participate, go to our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, this week we have learned the 18-year-old charged in the Brooklyn Day mass shooting has been denied bail. Tristan Jackson faces more than 50 charges, including 7 counts of attempted first-degree murder. But this isn't his first time in trouble with the law. At the time of the shooting, Jackson was wearing an ankle monitor because of a crime he committed as a juvenile. Now, tonight, Fox 45's Jeff Abel looking into a growing concern over how young criminals are monitored during supervised release.
At the scene of this city's largest mass shooting, it appears accused gunman 18-year-old Tristan Jackson may have broken the law before bullets had ever been fired. Court documents reveal that Jackson was wearing an ankle bracelet and being supervised by the Department of Juvenile Services on the night that Brooklyn block party erupted in gunfire.
They may allow you to be outside your house, but they don't allow you to be all the way on the other side of town.
The terms of his supervision are still unclear, but what is clear, according to those working in the system, is that juveniles are often loosely monitored.
A lot of times monitors will give people, especially juveniles, multiple chances to come into compliance and to report.
If a defendant who's under supervision does step out of bounds, defense attorney Roya Hanna says those monitoring the program often use discretion over which move to make next.
When a violation is reported, either somebody has gone out of bounds, they've cut off their ankle monitor, they break curfew, it sends an email or text alert to the monitor. That monitor is then supposed to call the individual and see if there is a verifiable emergency.
Typically, defendants are instructed to go home, and Hannah says rarely are they penalized until the violation comes before a judge, and sometimes that never happens.
Any home detention system relies on the diligence and ability of the home monitors to adequately maintain contact with the person who's being monitored and report it when there is an infraction.
Earlier today, we asked the Department of Juvenile Services to clarify what happened in this latest case. What were the terms of the suspect's GPS monitoring? What is the protocol if someone wearing an ankle monitor leaves the area of detention? And who was responsible for monitoring the suspect on the night of the mass shooting? We're still waiting for an explanation.
It's a colossal failure.
Kenji Scott, who once led a state juvenile justice coalition, says the home monitoring system is one more failure in juvenile justice.
Where we're at right now, nothing is being done. And as a result of nothing is being done, we're burying children and we're burying people who children are killing.
Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, back in May, Fox 45 News sat down for an exclusive interview with Vincent Schiraldi. Mackenzie Frost questioned him about the department's supervision of those in their custody.
We had a 12-year-old who was gunned down in South Baltimore not too long ago. He had a GPS ankle monitor on under the supervision of DJS. In 2019, we had the 16-year-old who was part of the group of kids who were charged with Officer Amy Caprio's death. He too was on supervision, so that didn't work for the public safety aspect for the community. What needs to improve for the supervision, the probation, the parole within DJS to ensure that there is safety for the community and for these kids who are on it?
Yeah, so supervision all by itself, by a government-funded probation officer or community supervisor, that's just this much of the problem. We really have to engage the rest of the people in their community. You got to get in there with those kids and interrupt that flow and put them on a path to success. That's where we'll have our best success, not just because some PO sees you once a week in his office and has you, pee in a cup and tell you to go forth and sin no more. That's not ever going to do it.
Well, state lawmakers will hold a hearing next month to address juvenile crime. It is not a special session and can't be used to enact new laws or change existing ones. Governor Moore told Fox 45 News he will not be calling a special session. That brings us once again to our question of the day.
A 17-year-old stabbed in Havre de Grace yesterday has died, according to police. That stabbing happened at the McDonald's on Pulaski Highway. Authorities have arrested 2 people for the stabbing. One of them is another 17-year-old. A new survey from WalletHub ranks Baltimore as the least attractive real estate market in the country.
The survey looked at more than 300 cities and rated categories like median days a property sits on the market, job growth, maintenance costs, and more. Well, tonight we are joined by economist Anirban Basu, who is helping us break down the findings. Thank you so much for joining us.
Right. Thank you very much.
Well, the study specifically singled out Baltimore as the worst place in the nation to buy a home. Do you agree with their assessment?
Well, they had 17 variables that they put together into one composite index. Those variables measure things like economic dynamism and also, of course, home price dynamics, days on market, as you mentioned. And when they ran their numbers, and this is quite a sophisticated analytical team, a number of PhDs on this staff, they found that among 300 U.S. cities, Baltimore ranked 300th in terms of being a good place to buy a home.
Anirban, if anything is, as people like to say, your wheelhouse, this is definitely your wheelhouse. These are the things you study year after year. How do you believe an unattractive real estate market impacts a city? And is there anything that can be done to change that? Or is this really just the way the buyers operate? Is this the free market system, so to speak?
Oh, no, we can change this. So what basically has happened is this, Kai. So this is not for the metropolitan area, these measurements. Today's report from WalletHub was about the city itself. Now, the suburbs of Baltimore are very expensive. And one of the reasons for that is there's not much new housing development in the suburbs. So that also helps to drive up city prices. So basically what the WalletHub analysts are saying is you end up paying a lot for a home in Baltimore City to be part of a really stagnant local economy. And that's really the benchmark. You're paying a lot of money, and yet you don't see a lot of job creation in the environment. You're not seeing a lot of home price appreciation in the environment relative to other cities. And so it's a poor value proposition. We can stimulate economic growth. We can make Baltimore and Maryland more attractive for investment, create a better economy, and therefore create a better value proposition for those thinking about buying a home in our community.
Do you think the crime crisis is playing into this poor real estate market?
Yes, absolutely. Now, none of the 17 variables the WalletHub analysts used had anything to do with crime. However, crime impacts economic vitality. If people don't feel safe, they don't start businesses, they don't visit, so on and so forth. And so one of the reasons that we don't have vibrant commerce in our region and in our city is because of the elevated criminality. So indirectly, crime is part of the data, and one of the reasons we ended up ranking 300th out of 300 cities.
All right. Economist Anirban Basu, always a pleasure to talk with you, Anirban, and educational as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kai and Mary. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, continuing coverage now on the controversy surrounding state school superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury after dozens of texts were deleted. Patrice Sanders talks with one critic.
Project Baltimore continues to investigate text messages that were deleted by State School Superintendent Mohammed Chowdhury. Watchdog groups say the messages are public record and deleting them has the appearance of a cover-up. Some say he should resign. Denisha Allen is with the American Federation for Children and founder of Black Minds Matter. Her work centers around making sure Black students have a chance to excel in education. And when that doesn't happen, she says someone needs to be held accountable.
Deleted messages, new emails that's been on threads from personal accounts. I worked for the U.S. Department of Education. I know that that is a no. You do not do that. And so it does beg the question, what's happening if state officials are willing to cover up personal emails and delete text messages and just avoid the question